Welcome to Inside the Upside Down, the first one from the new studio. I'm Mike Ricksecker. With me is Shauna, our chat shenanigator from Edge of the Rabbit Hole. Thanks for joining us tonight. Yes, and we do have the blue lights going. And Ghosty. Make sure on that. Okay. So, get into first a little bit about what ley lines are and some of the more popular ones and how all this stuff came to be. So here are, this is just a graphic here of standing stones, and it's all in relation of why these standing stones exist in the way the ley lines are. Now it was too low. Now you're golden. Okay. I'm reading too much into the comments down there. So, the ley lines are basically, people talk about an energy grid, and so these different sources of magnetism that go across the Earth. People have noticed that throughout the years, many of these are connected. Basically, what they're connecting with are the lines of energy that are within the Earth, and they're basically tapping into that in order to utilize the energy. And so, some of the more popular ones of these, and I'll just throw a couple up here real quick, like the Apollo Athena one. So along this line is the darkened part is the land. So this is Europe, and along this line are many temples and shrines to Apollo and Athena. And you can see how long it goes, all the way from Ireland down into the Middle East. And yeah, Candy, you can look up ley line maps in Google, and this is one of those that you can find out there. $2 super chat from Chanel. Thank you very much. Do appreciate that. So, it's no secret, and this line is actually in line with I want to say it's the winter solstice, the sun of the winter solstice. And they all come down this line. But basically, they're tapping into an energy source that is all through here. Another one that is, whoops, it didn't pop up. And there's another $5 super chat from Chanel. So, okay, this one's in the UK. It is the Michael and Mary ley line. So, all up and down this line here are buildings, temples, shrines, cathedrals, what have you, to the Archangel Michael or Mary. And it's really no coincidence that this happens. And so there's some different terms for all of this. I'll just get into one real quick. I don't want to get too technical on you. And there is a $10 super chat from Tom McNicholas. Says, congrats on the new studio. Hope it has heat for the winter. We were just talking about
we were just talking about that.
Oh, yeah. So, and that's telluric currents. And people, of course, relate this to, those are the magnetic streams that are within the Earth. And so, people tap into that with ley lines, spirit roads, all that. We have that type of terminology for it. And basically, this is electric current, which moves underground and through the sea. And so, our scientists, our engineers actually utilize this energy, even though they, try to kind of, poo-poo us off as, those spiritualists, in their ley lines, and, they were thinking they're getting energy from these, standing stones and whatnot. Well, actually, they're tapping into it as well, So just a couple of examples. They're using it for mineral exploration, geothermal exploration, petroleum exploration, mapping fault zones, groundwater exploration, investigation of magma chambers, investigating boundaries of tectonic plates. So they're utilizing this for a lot of stuff, and even NASA's been quoted as saying that they'll follow the water underground because that'll lead them to the underground magnetism. So, so yeah, and just a another one of how far that they can travel. So there's one in New Zealand, connects through Australia and all the way up here to Santiago de Compostela, which is known as the Field of Stars. So some of these are very, very lengthy. And so I see we already have some questions in the chat. Pamela Rainey, how were they discovered? Well, I mean, this is something that the ancients discovered, a long, long time ago. All these different hinges that have been there for, 4, 5, 8, 10,000 years. They've been tapping into this. This is like ancient knowledge lost to time that, we're just now rediscovering. I mean, I say rediscover, but, people that were more spiritual in nature have kind of always known this. I think it's more of our scientific community that's like, oh, check this out, we found this. It's like, it's been there for a while, people. That's why places like Stonehenge were built. But basically, these sources of energy, they were going to these places to get in tune with their gods, and or whether they were doing a self-cleansing, or depending on the culture, they had a lot of different beliefs as to what they could use this energy for. They just knew that going in there that it was an energy that they could tap into. I mean, honestly, we were watching it today. You could tap into some of the videos from Freddie Silva, some of his lectures, and get into a lot deeper. I mean, we're gonna glaze over it, kind of gloss over it a little bit on the technical stuff, but you get into some of his more deeper research on is really, really interesting as far as how the ancients used this for whatever their beliefs were. So, per Fran, did they make magnets go haywire? Kind of interesting. One thing that I saw, and then we'll start getting to some more, because I know you're kind of quiet over there.
Just listening.
One of the interesting things that I saw here was a guy took a CD player and he put it on top of one of the standing stones, which emits a resonance. It has a wavelength to it, and he was playing some different shamanic drumming from the CD player, and based on the what I want to say, the frequency that he was playing the shamanic drumming, it would change the wavelength that was being emitted from the standing stone. So they do have their own resonance that they play back. So then that's kind of the same thing. Do they affect compasses? Well, you are talking about magnetism, and so it can affect compasses for sure. And one of the other things that was kind of interesting about this, so we'll go to the rollright stones. So I don't have a photo. I should have gotten a photo. So these stones, this is in the UK. So they're in a nice, circle like this. And what they discovered back in the 80s was that it created almost like a shield, that basically the background levels of ultrasound within the circle were lower than outside of it, and you could see where there's kind of a little entrance in there, and it kind of opens up for people to come in and then experience the circle itself. So it's really, really interesting how they knew to be able to use this type of energy. See, from Among Stars.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Good to see you down there, Steve.
Steve Glassford. Look him up on YouTube because he's fantastic. If you're a fan of Breaking Benjamin or Shinedown or anybody like that, his covers of them will just blow you away. Truth.
It's good stuff. We played on Enigma Underground Radio. So, okay, so his question is, do you believe aliens might have something to do with the ancient people obtaining this knowledge? So he's going right for the aliens.
I kind of agree. I mean, you almost have to, really. I mean, they're so, like, the ancient, like, how knowledgeable, they were. Whenever you go, like, way, 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 way back, and people are just barely civilized, and then all of a sudden, from eons and ages ago, there's all this super powerful, wondrous shit popping up everywhere. Pardon my profanity. I'm not going to drop any F-bombs
You're
tonight.
wearing profanity on your shirt.
Yeah, I'm into witchy shit. Yeah, I know.
She's not worried about profanity. It's right there the entire show.
I think, yeah. I think aliens are a big part of everything, really. I've never met one up close and personal or anything, but I know they're out there. I've seen a UFO or two in my time, so.
Yeah, I definitely believe that extraterrestrials are out there. I still think there's a lot to learn, and maybe we don't. I think maybe we experience them differently than some people have put out there. I think some accounts are correct. It's kind of a mixed bag, really. We have a $10 super chat from Mickey Dole. She says, "I've never been laid." But she also has a question: is there a map of the ley lines in the U.S.? Yeah, I mean, you can Google ley line maps. This is what I have to say about that, and I'll get back to the alien thing real quick. That was actually kind of difficult to do, to find good maps that you could actually see, because they would be, like, okay, here's an entire map of the U.S., but it's small, and it's got all these lines going across, so to actually see where anything's crossing on those that we Google were quite difficult. I did notice on some sites where they offered a download of a ley line map overlay for, like, Google Earth. I didn't have time to play around with all of that, but so it's kind of hit or miss. We were trying to specifically find one for Illinois.
Yeah, there were a few links that led me to like just my hometown, Campsville, where the Center for American Archaeology is, and one of the bigger dig sites that's close by, just like 5 minutes, across the river. And there was one link I didn't click into it on my phone, because at the time my phone was not really letting me do too much, and so I didn't click into it, but it looked like a big PDF, document, and looked like it might have been a good link, so I bookmarked it. I'm very interested, because also that was brought up in Illinois was Cahokia Mounds in Cahokia, Illinois, and I've never been there, but everybody I know has been there, and apparently it's a hell of an experience. So, and it's situated just right on, and they think that the reason why it has so much energy, other than, what it has going on, is because of its position on a ley line. So, definitely look that one up.
Yeah. So, and I see that Candy Edge kind of scrolled by, said that searching them by state, even trying to do like a ley lines Illinois map, something like that is difficult. And I saw Karen say that the ley line maps on Google stink. Yeah, it's kind of my assertion as well. I know that there are some ley line books out there that are supposed to have some good maps, so that would be great. And then that overlay. I'll have to download that and play with it one of these times, see if that's comes out a little bit better. So, per Fran, have they discovered any underwater ley lines like Atlantis? Well, ley lines do cross underwater, so they'll circumnavigate the globe, and they'll go underwater. There are some locations around Earth that refer to Atlantis. Whether or not Atlantis was really there or not, we don't know. But they do hit some underwater structures and geological magnetic points that are pretty important out there. Bermuda Triangle is one of those underwater ley line crossings. So they do cross underwater as well. So will the county offices have those maps from Candy? For For ley lines, probably not. They would have all kinds of other maps, but to actually map out the ley lines themselves, no.
Probably not around here for sure.
Yeah.
Like the archaeology departments, they're more likely to get into that kind of thing, I would think. I used to talk to some of the students whenever they were hanging out because in Campsville, they would have the Center for American Archaeology would have active digs and classes and stuff like that going on. So right next to the cafe was the Archaeology Museum, and upstairs was a set of one of several sites of dorm rooms. And they would kind of on the down low, talk about some stuff that was going on. And so about the time that we were studying ley lines and trying to figure out what was going on and how it tied in with everything, and we were kind of picking their brains one night, and one of them was very much into it and said that it was definitely a topic of interest for her. So, if you have a local archaeology department, definitely hit them up because they're going to be more, involved in what's going on with the land. So I would try them for sure.
Yeah, and there is, I guess there is technically a difference between ley lines and energy grid lines, where the energy grid lines are specifically magnetic, and the ley lines tend more to be geologic in nature. So I saw some questions in there about finding them. There was one about freshwater. They'll go through freshwater too. But I guess some of the methods, like the ancients used, of course, there's dowsing. People would, have different methods of dowsing. Of course, that was a very ancient technique that they would use for, find energy, find water. And of course, like NASA said, it's kind of funny. NASA saying here recently, well, we like to find the underground water because that'll lead to the magnetism. Well, the ancients were trying to find water with dowsing rods, thousands of years ago. Another thing that they would tap into are old volcanic fissures. So a lot of these standing stones are along these old volcanic fissures, and they tap into it. They put the standing stone there and tap into that energy because that's a thin spot on the Earth right there where you would have all that geological disturbance where this magnetism would be coming from. Here you can also look for these big pyramidal buildings in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like Giza, that's like one of the biggest places on Earth for this type of energy. So, all right. So how do we find them on your own? And that's the dowsing would be one way. And if you're kind of looking in your backyard, it's gonna be a little tougher. I mean, the way the like maps work are, you can find these different things in America too. So, your different, old archaeological sites, like, you take the different, mounds throughout, the Midwest, where you have, the Great Circle, Great Circle earthworks. You got the Great Circle earthworks. You got like the Serpentine Mound. You got all these different actual locations throughout the United States. So you can basically boom, 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 draw a line, and once you get a couple of points together, there's your line. Another interesting one is Washington D.C. being like 108 degrees from Heliopolis, which is 108 is one of those sacred numbers and used in sacred geometry and all that. So there's a lot of things like that around. So you can discover it on your own between a little bit of studying and, like I said, follow the water, which with the cafe, and I know the volume gets lower when I turn my head to talk to Shauna. I got to start learning to do this, like backing up a little bit and talking towards Shauna this way, but also hitting the microphone, something like that. Dallas right by the water. You got the limestone bluffs. You got the water that's right there. I noticed it looked like on a couple of the maps that the lines are going by there. Hard to tell because we didn't have one specifically of Illinois or that area.
Right.
But from the research that you guys did, you had that crossing right there at the cafe.
Right. And, that made perfect sense, to me. Because not only was the cafe, right by the river, but a lot of the times it was surrounded by it because it flooded so much, So that place was just constantly in contact with water in some way. And, and then like you talk about, the limestone bluffs and just, the place just had a lot going on. I don't know if Jeannie is watching this or not, but Jeannie, need to get back in that building. Have to.
Yeah, no, I'd love to get in there for a first time just to check out what all goes on there. And that's another thing, taking it into the paranormal and the supernatural realm. I mean, of course, these the lines, and then the standing stone structures, and things like that, the temples that are around there. I mean, they're all trying to do the same things, utilize the energy on that spot to do whatever it is that they want to do within their religion. Where was I going? I do that sometimes. It's like I'll kind of start to segue and oh shit, I'll lose my spot. But I can't remember where the hell I was going with it. I was going into our experiences with the paranormal and the supernatural. Aside, and that's how I did it. Aside from what all this other stuff is that we've been talking about here for the last 25 minutes, we've noticed increased paranormal activity at these locations. So, while there's an increased energy for cleansing the body, or heightening your resonance, your vibration, all those different things that are going on within your body. And there's all kinds of great material out there about how the energy there can affect the iron within your body. There's magnetite crystals that are supposed to be in your brain, like little pieces of it, the pineal gland, all those different things that's supposed to affect at these locations. But then we've also noticed, the increase in paranormal activity. You mentioned the cafe, the Edmund house that we did for Haunted was supposed to be along a ley line, not a crossing like the cafe, but at least along a line. And so, and we had all kinds of stuff going on there, and we've talked about it at length here. But yes, you can get in tune better with yourself and your higher power and all that sort of stuff, but for researching the paranormal and the supernatural, that's increased here too.
Yeah, I think across the board, there's a lot more people, for whatever reason, that hadn't experienced anything before. All of a sudden, their experiences are happening now. So it's not as easy to find a skeptic nowadays. They're still out there, but there used to be a lot more of them. It's just everything, I don't know, what's going on, but just the energy, has amped up a lot. I have stuff going on all the time, but not everywhere I go, of course, but it just seems like lately, where's the switch, because it's like I gotta work, and sometimes I'm at home, I just don't want to deal with it right now. But when we go to one of the places, that has a lot of energy, places like Mineral Springs is right there by the river. It's extremely active, as are a lot of the places that are out there by the river in Alton. It's more active each time we go in there. So
well, it certainly seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, whoops. I hit it. I'm sorry.
It happens. Per Fran, their existence was suggested in 1921 by amateur archaeologist Alfred Watkins, whose book The Old Straight Track brought the alignments to the attention of the people. Yeah, that's true. His book kind of made everybody notice, because it had been kind of forgotten for a while. But the ancients, knew about this long ago, and that's how they lined all this up. And not just the ancients either. You see a lot of cathedrals and temples that within the last maybe several hundred or 1,000 years or whatever. So it's not just there's ghosty. So it's not just like 4,000 years ago, or a circle of standing stones. The Vatican is on one of these ley lines. And what was the remark that there had been a standing stone on a hill there long ago, and now the obelisk that was stolen, well, borrowed or whatever, is now there in the in Vatican City to mark that spot. So, but yeah, so that and we know the story that the Sistine Chapel is supposed to be built on the hill where Peter was supposed to be crucified upside down and all of that. But this is another site along one of those tracks, and that's a little bit more modern here than, say, Stonehenge. You guys have a lot of questions that you throw out there, which is great, absolutely great. So per Karen, do you feel they will enhance your intent or purpose? What do you think?
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to, it is supposed to, raise your resonance and raise your vibration. So I think that your intent or purpose, I guess it depends on what your intent or purpose is. We've heard about places like what is it, Saqqara, where walking into the temple there, how it fluctuated between positive and negative energy zones, and that was supposed to cleanse you on your way in. And basically, the idea was to just leave your shit at the door. So, so as long as you had that, I guess, that purpose of I'm cleansing myself as I walk in before I get into the temple, then sure, that would increase your purpose, I would think.
Probably meditating on a ley line might kind of change things, change the intensity or the energy from your meditate or whatever you're trying to do, whatever your intent is. I mean, like if you're into witchy shit. Oops.
Oh, there goes Ghosty.
Ghost down. Ghost down. I'm sorry. Sorry. Can you tap into a ley line energy for spell work, or during a meditation, or is there certain? Is ley line energy affected by moon phases? I'm sure someone said that, asked that once. I don't remember who I was talking to or how it came up, but they were talking about that. I have no idea. Does ley line energy, is it affected by us and whatever's going on with us, or, is it, does it change? Does the energy, change at these places? Or I got all kinds of questions. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot, I think, that we're going to discover along the way when it comes to ley lines, energy grids, standing stones, sites of, you call them sites of power, really. So Pamela Rainey asked, does Bohemian Grove tie the government to ley lines? And question mark. I'm not sure specifically about Bohemian Grove, but does the government know about this stuff? Yeah. I would say absolutely. And prime example, Washington, D.C. I mentioned earlier the 108 degrees to Heliopolis. Not a mistake. Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp. Who in the world wants to build their capital city on a swamp? Well, there's a specific reason why it was built there. And that's one of them. And if you look at the, and by the way, the center of that point is the dome of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. But if you look at the layout, you can see all of this sacred geometry within there between the Capitol building, the Washington Monument, the White House, and some of the other different monuments that are around there. Is the way it's all laid out. Yeah, there are specific ways this has all been put together in order to increase the power structure of the city. Absolutely. So government knows about this stuff. They just may not have been willing to admit it for a long time. But now places like NASA are. From Sharon, this is for you, Shauna. Do you feel that your abilities increase when you are near known ley lines?
I mean, I never really researched like any of the other places until, just recently. What might be near one, what might be on one, what might, I only have the cafe to go on right now because, it's the only one where we really, delved into it. I know that I got a lot of experiences in that building, and I think, the more time I spent there on the property, the stronger it got. So I can definitely say that if being on top of a ley line is what caused that building, in addition to the events and the history that are attached to it, if that plays a part in it, then yeah, it definitely affected me in a big way. That's brought me to where I am today, really. It's what made me really want to delve a lot deeper into the paranormal and the stuff that was happening to me on a personal level that didn't have anything to do with spirits necessarily, but I really think that it played a big part in my life.
And just all the stories that you've told me from there, there's some of the most vivid stories that you've told me of activity that you've had between, bookcases being thrown around to seeing Byron, as if he was just, flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Some of the different shadow people that you've seen there.
I mean, just some of the someday I'm going to write a book about just that place. That's its own book, really, just from all of the stuff that had happened there. And every time I was in there, there was one notable thing that was different than any of the other times. And, I'd been going in there for several years, but I'd been going in there as a child, too, not even knowing what was going on until I started working there. So I had no idea. Of course, I wasn't looking for that then. But, yeah, I mean, to the subject of ley lines, and if that's what was creating such a powerful energy source there, it makes total sense to me. So, I mean, and then, if it's on, a connector point, for a ley line, if something is sitting on top of one of those, is that considered, or could that be considered a portal of some kind? So that would make sense too.
Yeah, and those crossings, a lot of people speculate are, they are supposed to have portal activity, whether it's a portal to a supernatural realm or it's just a much stronger energy field that you can tap into. There's definitely something special that goes on during those crossings.
Right. I mean, like I said, inside the building, on camera, caught an orb. It had its own light source. It was just the camera was focused in the middle of the room, and all of a sudden, it just materialized, just boom, just right there. And then it just came from out of something in the middle of the room. It was just there, and then it went into close to the next room, and it kind of stopped, and then it came back and it disappeared right into the place that it came out of on camera. It's like, where'd it go? Where'd it come from? It was like all of a sudden, it was like watching an eclipse, like watching a shadow go over, just the whole shape. It just swallowed it wherever it came out of. So, what was that? I have no idea. Some little mini, portal in there that just sucked it in like a little black hole or something like that. It came in, it came out, went back in. So, That building's got some stuff going on,
Yeah,
for
that had
sure.
some stuff going on. And, being along the line there in that Edmond house, that's where we didn't ever see the red eyes. Taliesin saw the red eyes all the time. I saw that black shadow mass there. Um, what else we had? I mean, with the doors blowing open like crazy. There's just a ton of activity going on there. And especially that moment where it seemed like she got punched in the gut, and you get the wind swirling up like crazy that was only in the backyard. It was a water bottle. It was only in the backyard, nowhere else in the yard, because they weren't experiencing the side yard. It was really, really crazy stuff, along this line there. So whether that was more to do with the ley line or more of just the entity that was there, well, if we're talking about being able to harness this type of energy ourselves, well, an entity like that would be able to harness it as well.
Yeah,
So,
is it free energy?
Yeah.
Or does it discern, no, you can't have it? So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, people will say, well, I had battery drain, and, I've been saying for a while now that I think it's by accident, that the spirits don't know that they're doing that. Otherwise, it's just stick their finger in a socket and charge up,
Mm-hmm.
But if this energy from a line is already there, already existing, it would keep a charge for that entity to be able to do a lot, without having to. This is theory. Do they take a break for a while and recharge or what have you? But there would always be that energy there, some kind of energy for it to use.
Right, because the earth is full of it. There's energy everywhere.
Yeah. So Tim Schoen is asking, could the Bermuda Triangle or similar places be affected by ley lines? Well, from my understanding, there is a crossing of ley lines within the Bermuda Triangle, so that could attribute to a number of the different things that happen there, that are said to happen there, allegedly. Throw all those terms in there, allegedly. And it scrolled all the way down. I never know how to stop that. Once I start going, it just drops all the way down. So that was Tim. There's Betty and Wayne. So much forgotten by man knowledge. Do you think that the government knows about ley lines? Okay, so that was, we answered that. So the government know about ley lines. We talked about that. Yes, they do. Thank you, Betty and Wayne. Per Karen, don't you feel it's because more people are becoming more open and that energy is building as more people believe? It's interesting. I really think that the energy's always been there. I think that because people are becoming more open, that they're able to use more of that energy now than they had been able to in the past. But I think the energy's always been there. What do you think?
And do you think that energy, because we're now manipulating it, whether by absorbing it or tapping into it, is there like a reverse, effect? I mean, is it constantly charged, not because of where the positioning or the energy from the land, but energy from people also? I mean, does that affect it?
Well, and that could be why when they would go to these sacred sites and they would have these ceremonies, it would be a group of people, and they would all be performing some sort of, whether it's a ritual, beating of the drums, chanting, whatever. All of that group energy, all that energy from each individual person, as the site is enhancing them, I believe it's enhancing the group as well.
Again, Cahokia, Monk's Mound is a good example of that too. I know a lot of them do like rituals there when there's an eclipse, or when there's during like solstice, and during all kinds of spiritual events on the event calendar going on. There's always something going on there, and that place is where they flock. Because apparently it's quite a rush, apparently. And it's on my bucket list. It's so close, Cahokia Mounds and Monk Mounds. We're going to have to go. I mean, everybody that I've ever talked to, says you want to charge your crystals somewhere, do it there. I mean, be on top of the mound or on it during a full moon. I mean, you probably have to fight people off to get to a spot there. A lot of us are going to go there to do that because it's a very high energy place. So, yeah, it's definitely on the bucket list.
Well, let me throw this out there. So, what was it? This past June, what was it, 30th? When I was down in Newark to do the investigation of the old Licking County Jail. We had Ohio Paranormal Syndicate out there, Sean Gilmore, great group. Before I went there, I went to the Great Circle Earthworks there in Newark. I'd already been there a few years ago, but I wanted to revisit. I wanted to get some drone footage of it. And so I got the drone. I was fully charged when I left my apartment in Elyria back when I lived in Ohio. Way back when I lived in Ohio. So I set up on what they call the Eagle Mound, and primarily because it was extremely hot. It was like 98,000 degrees. I'm like not kidding. It was super super hot. And there's this big tree right there by the Eagle Mound that provides a lot of shade. So I wanted to hang out under there, and while I took the drone up. So I put it out there on the mound and went back into the shade. And it wasn't up there. I'm supposed to get 22 minutes at least, 24 minutes of charge out of it. It wasn't up there about 5 minutes. And it was screaming at me that it had low battery. So, I mean, you can say what you want. Oh, yeah, battery drain at the Great Circle Earthworks. But, I mean, this is supposed to be one of those sites of power. We mentioned the standing stones earlier. I'm not specifically sure if it's the same type of phenomenon as the standing stones that we were talking about earlier, that basically put that shield around in a circle. Maybe because it has a opening, it has an entrance, kind of similar. So did it drain the battery from the drone? I don't know, but I think it's odd that I had a full battery going down there, and I only had 5 minutes, and it was done. So, think of it what you want. What else do we have? You guys have some great questions tonight, by the way. So, Karen saying, moon phases affect the tide, ley lines are on water, makes sense. They all affect each other.
Yeah, they're all connected.
Kenny Orton says, Mike, so you proposed to Shauna on a ley line. You never know. I might propose to her on this show. I don't think we're on a ley line. Will you marry me?
Yeah, okay.
It's funny. We were talking about this earlier today, and it's... I'm gonna find like the perfect moment or whatever to do it. And I think she's more like, come on, get on with it already.
Yeah, I suspect what's going to be going on when it happens, and now he's going to be like, oh shit, now I got to find another.
Yeah, because you were saying like on an investigation or something like that earlier. So it will happen. This is true. So Karen asked, what's the name of the cafe? What is its official name? You always just say it's the cafe.
Yeah, it's changed ownership, over the years. Whenever I was growing up, it was called Gardner's Store. It was a grocery store. Then when I started working at it, it was called CBC, Captain Bill and Kathy's River Treasures and Cafe. It was a cafe, and had an ice cream shop and a consignment store attached to it. And then my friend Jeannie purchased it, and she did some work in it. But then one of the floods, came through, and pretty much nature took its course, and the building is still standing, but the front room was caved in. You can now see into the cellar about a foot into the door. So we've been under there too, and it's it's definitely got a lot of energy down there. And so she wanted to call it the Spirits Cafe, and thought that she might turn it into some type, use it for investigations, but possibly have some type of research center in there. Still hoping that she does something with it, because there's so much going on there that it, for research purposes, it needs to stay open, I think. I mean,
that'd be great. I mean, shoot, I'll lay some boards down and walk in there.
Yeah, my dad would probably.
I got a hammer right there. I'll go buy some nails and a few boards, and we'll walk in there.
Yeah, my dad would probably help with that. He's been in there a few times. He's helped with some of the carpentry in there over the years, and he's given me safer alternatives to get upstairs when I was determined to get up there, whether it was safe or not. So if I tell him, he'd be like, "Yep, I got tools. Let's go." Yep. That's my dad.
So Fungi comments, perhaps Tesla's wireless electricity is based on a ley line grid, drawing energy from them. Well, actually, that's exactly what his Tesla tower was doing. He bore straight into the ground to draw energy up from the ground. And it's really not like he was rediscovering that type of technology. It was already known. They were dating back to the 1840s. They were using some of that ground energy for the telegraph lines, and so they were already using it to some degree. It's not like it was a lot of energy to do that. It didn't take a lot of energy to for the telegraph lines, but a little bit, enough that they could actually utilize that type of technology. But Tesla was basically doing the same thing. To a much bigger extent, and his idea was free wireless for energy for everybody. He may have been trying to take it a little too far, because his idea was to turn the entire Earth into like one gigantic electric dynamo, which may have given us all cancer. But the principle of using the ground energy, bringing it up and spreading it around, yeah, that's exactly what he was trying to do. Just might not have been exactly safe. All right, so what else you guys got? So Dresden Files by Jim Butcher is from Betty Away. Fictional uses ley lines in his book. Well, and that was like one of the issues I had with some of the Google Maps that I was finding online, is that or some of the images for maps online when Googling ley lines, is that I know that there were some of them that I was looking at that were not showing true ley line grids. So just from knowing where some of them are, it's like, that's not right. So
there was one that I found that would let you just blow it up, and it had little dots that you could click on that would bring up info and stuff like that. I bookmarked it. It's on my phone. It was one of the archaeology department
good
affiliated ones, and so yeah, I'll have to find it.
Yeah, because that would be interesting. Let's see what else you guys have. So you guys have had a lot of great questions. Really do appreciate all of that. So Tom says, it just Googled, and there are ley lines in the Chicago area. Yeah, Chicago's supposed to have a number of ley line crossings throughout there. So looking at some of the different North American maps, at least the accurate ones, they do show ley lines going through Chicago. So, so from Donna, our Cheshire Cat in the house tonight, do you think prior to flood that cafe changed hands so much due to the activity?
I mean, there was a lot of traumatic events going on, there. Even the lady that owned it, whenever I started working there and whenever we started researching the place, she was one of the, people that we talked to, because she owned it, for a few years. And she was like, why do you think, we had said, did anything happen, to you there? What kind of stuff did you experience in there? She goes, why do you think it closed at 5 o'clock before dark? She goes, you know, it used to keep later hours. She goes, why do you think I started closing it early? She goes, I had to be in that building by myself. Of course there was stuff going on there. I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's...
She's no fool.
No, apparently, you know, I used to work in that building alone, you know, and had no idea the stuff that was going on in there, the stuff that was going to happen to me in there. I had no idea. So all I knew is that, you know, and during a storm, wow. I mean, there was really some stuff going on in there during a storm. That place was just supercharged during lightning and stuff like that. So, you know, I know it changed hands quite a bit. It seemed like when you look at the deed, if you do a deed search on the property, you know, you could pretty much see, you know, like something traumatic would happen, you know, and then pretty quick after that it would change hands, and then so that would make sense. But even before the building was there was still tragedy and stuff going on before the building was even built. Byron, you know, came to be, you know, he was before the building was even there. So, and there was tragedy happening there before the building was even thought of. So, you know, we tried to take that place back as far as we can take it, but there's still stuff that is not documented. But, you know, and then of course right there by the river and in that area was a Native American campground. That whole area down there, you know. So there's a lot of stuff.
And consider this, you know, did the Native Americans settle there because of if there's a crossing there with all this energy, that maybe that they knew this was a site to settle and take in that energy and be able to utilize it for, you know, whatever their worshiping methods were.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah. So, Fran Molino states the Great Pyramid is aligned with Machu Picchu, the Nazca Lines, and Easter Island along a straight line around the center of the Earth. Yeah, Angkor Wat as well, and a number of other places. That whole parallel, there's all kinds of stuff along that, and there's other ley lines that cross from other areas of the world. So it's like you look at the Great Pyramid, and it's almost like spokes of a wheel. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that it's connected with around the world. Yep. So, kind of already saw all that stuff. And we saw that one too. Oh, yeah, I guess we froze there for a second, according to them. I don't know. So always toward the end of the show, is that what's going to happen now? Towards the end of the show, we're going to hit. Okay. From Betty, do you think the Indians use ley lines to make their mounds? Well, I think they're along ley lines. Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably more aware of that stuff. You know, if you think about looking at, you know, Koki Mounds, Monk Mound, you know, Monk's Mound, you know, all of that stuff. Whenever you look up ley lines in Illinois, that's the big one. You know, in this area. There were some others too, some sites listed. There was quite a few of them in Illinois, quite a few of them in Ohio.
There's a lot of them in Ohio, yeah. From the mountain, there were a lot of mound builders in Ohio. There were a lot of reported giants in Ohio, so there's a lot of that different type of stuff that's in Ohio. But is that water bottle again? Well, consider this. I don't think that, you know, around the world as these things were being built, that, you know, somebody in Italy was saying, we're going to build this temple here because up in England along this line they also built a temple here. I don't think that they were doing that. I think what was going on was, you know, they picked up on this energy source right there where they were at, and so they built their temple or standing stone structure or whatever the heck it was, you know, cathedral, whatever. This is our site of power right here, and it's over the centuries, over the millennia, that you start looking, it's like, yeah, they're all lining up, da 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 da, because this is where this basically a power line through the earth goes. And so, for ley lines in America, it's the same thing. They're building here because this is where they notice that the energy is. Somebody in Ohio, and then somebody in Illinois is building because this is where the energy is, and then somebody in Missouri and New Mexico or whatever, and you just start looking at the map, and boom, 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 they all line up because that's where the flow of energy is. So more or less, yeah. We could just simply answer a lot of these questions. Yes, no, yes. But, we like to get into it. Power to the gals. Yeah, absolutely. Per Tom. Nice. Are ectogasms caused by ley lines? Ectogasms are caused when you get laid. Right, Ghosty?
Ghosty would know.
Ghosty would know. Karen Whitaker says, Ohio is a scary state. Now, I'm a native Ohioan. So,
it's kind of cool.
There's a lot of stuff going on in Ohio.
Just what little bit that I've been able to experience of Ohio. It's got some stuff going on. Ohio State Reformatory is there. The remains of the Gore Orphanage is there, a.k.a. Swift Mansion. Let's just call it that because that's its actual name. The Gore Orphanage is what everybody into urban legends knows it as, even though none of it was real, true, whatever. That's a good one to research too, by the way. And we happen to have a video about it right on this channel.
Yes, we do. We get into the truth of what happened there at the Swift Mansion and quote-unquote Gore Orphanage site.
Yeah, and I'll always say it, and it's always going to be true. Sometimes the truth is more interesting than the legend, what's made up. It ends up, being more significant to me than anything, some of the shows on TV put out there. So, I know it makes for good television for entertainment purposes, but do some research because, let it keep you up at night. Do the research. There's some interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, we've been there, done that, up all hours of the night researching. But Ohio is definitely an interesting state. You had, of course, we just talked about the mound builders throughout there, some of the different findings of giants and things like that. But it has an interesting geological history just from the glacier that cut through there. Ohio Valley was carved out by the glaciers. Of course, you have Lake Erie at the top, and then the Ohio River comes around the south side. And Ohio used to have a saying. I don't think they use it anymore. But when I was a teenager there, they called Ohio the heart of it all because it is shaped like a heart. So there's a lot of interesting little things. The eastern side of the state, you had all the the coal mining, and they were boring into the earth there. By Lake Erie, they had all the salt mines. So there's a lot of interesting history within the state, geologically, as well as what we've done as humans. Some good and some bad. The Cuyahoga River, burning in the 60s or 70s or whatever. So there's some bad stuff there too. But very, very interesting state for sure. So you want to think of it, Ohio. All right, so we are getting down toward the end of the show. Tom McNicholas saying there's so many stories in Ohio when he lived there. Absolutely. It's really the easternmost part of the Midwest, and the entire Midwest region has a lot of interesting history along with it as well. So, what else did you guys have? Anything? I could try to get to it. Donna Gorton saying, or this is per Pam, Bigfoot has been seen in Ohio too. And then from Donna, any connection to portals to ley lines? With Bigfoot, there's a lot of theories with I've never seen Bigfoot. And there's a lot of different theories with Bigfoot as to whether or not it's a remnant from some ancient species. that is still roaming around out there, which is possible. There's other people that believe that Bigfoot is an interdimensional creature. Some think he's an alien. So there's a lot of different theories out there. Whether it's a supernatural entity coming over from another plane of existence. Would ley lines or portals aid to that? Well, if that theory was true, sure. Do I believe that theory is true? I'm not really so sure about that. So I'm not saying that Bigfoot isn't real. I just, some of these different theories I have a harder time than with others. So Betty is saying relaxing show tonight. And then Donna saying not just Bigfoot but any cryptid or extra dimensional. Yeah, I mean, anything like that. If you're around, if you're talking about an interdimensional being, like we'll say a shadow person or something like that, I would say that along a ley line, certainly with a portal, you're going to have more of a chance to see and witness that type of experience. Will they have a lot more energy to be able to do something? Sure. And I don't think it really matters what the type of supernatural entity it is. That energy is going to be there for it to use. I think you have to know how to use it, because I think sometimes, first, it's okay, somebody that isn't aware of what this energy is or how to use it or anything like that walks into the area, they might feel like a buzz in their head, like, oh, what the heck, I'm feeling dizzy, oh, what's going on here, and then they walk out of the area and they're like, oh, that was weird. Somebody else who knows what to do with it can then utilize that energy. So the supernatural creature, shadow person, Bigfoot, chupacabra, I don't know. They would have to know how to be able to use that energy and what to do with it. And maybe they're more in tune with that than, say, Joe Blow out there. So I guess that's because you're saying, okay, so yeah, I could ley lines fuel that type of stuff. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. So Karen Whitaker saying, awesome show tonight, gave me a lot to research and think about, and yes, I'm a research geek. Okay, Karen, I would highly recommend, of course, watch all of our videos on here first. Binge watch to your delight, share it out, make sure all your friends subscribe, all that great stuff. Then when you're done with that, when you're like 20 years older, because that's about how much stuff we have out here. Well, it's over 500 videos. We've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Go check out Freddie Silva's presentation on ley lines. So I utilized a little bit of that information here, but there's so much more of it. Drink some coffee. Maybe make sure it's during the day or something like that.
Don't drive.
Don't drive. He has a very, very soothing voice. He's a great guy, a ton of information, but he can. And it's not that he's boring.
No.
It's his voice.
I mean, he would be amazing to do guided meditations.
Yeah.
I was, sending invites, the scrolling. It kind of, makes you a little sleepy, but doing that and listening to him at the same time, oh my God.
Yeah, I was knocking you out.
Yeah, I was about to fall asleep. I was like, wow, this guy, his voice.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff. And, I've seen, some of his stuff on Gaia before. He's been on the History Channel a lot. He's been around for a long time, decades worth of research. And he's always had that effect on me. Like, Freddie, I love you, but man, you're knocking me out. But yeah, so check out his stuff. It's really, really interesting if you want to do some research. All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up because it is now